Yes, you should.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that all traces of Sarah have been eliminated for today. She'll be back tomorrow. Don't worry.
May we never know.
Sarah will be back. Don't worry. Don't fret. Don't freak out.
Fret not.
Fret heart.
Heart. Take heart.
Fret Favre.
Fret. Adjust your
Fret Barv. Brett Favre.
Brett Favre's dad taught my wife how to drive.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah,
my grandma Roxy taught Robert Wadlow Sunday school.
Whoa, really?
Yeah. Those two things are not related.
No, but still.
Other than it was relative and taught being used in the sentence.
There you go.
I feel taught. The tension of a new show.
Brett Favre was.
Are you working on your cards?
I was, but I'm done now.
Yeah. No, I thought so. Like you gotta. Speaking of poke, you gotta go fish. And
I got my work cut out.
I know, man.
I probably did too many unlocks that required too much art, but whatever.
Yeah, it'll be fun till it's not. And then it'll be over.
It's a thing I'm actually really passionate about, so it doesn't feel like work.
Okay, or the cards?
Like all the face cards and the backs and all that.
Oh, you're not going to use the same backs? I mean,
not for all the decks. They'll have the different decks.
Oh, I see.
They'll have different backs.
Got multiple decks that have unlocked on the Kickstarter. Decks.
Backs are hard because they are often detailed and super complex. But
hey, Scott.
Yeah.
You want to try something new?
What's that?
Line 3. Can you say that?
I can say that.
All right. Let me count you in.
Okay. I'll be that guy.
Here we go. 3, 2.
Daily Tech News Show is powered by you. To find out more, head to dailytechnewsshow.com/support.
This is the Daily Tech News for Wednesday, May 2nd, 2018 in Los Angeles. I'm Tom Merritt.
In Salt Lake City, where I can now download Hulu shows to watch offline, I'm Scott Johnson.
And our lovely Sarah Lane is out with some other stuff going on today. She'll be back tomorrow. We miss her. But thankfully, our producer, Roger Chang, is still here.
I am still here. The
lovely Roger Chang. I've said it before, Roger. You're quite delicious. I mean, delightful.
Whoa, ripped from today's headlines, Tom.
Yeah, ripped from today's French headlines. I am going to break down a little bit about, I don't think we often remind ourselves that there was a lot of hype that didn't prove true. So regarding Apple earnings, we're going to do that a little later in the show. Let's start with a few tech things you should know. Google is launching an investment program for early-stage startups that use Google Assistant in their products. Google will provide financial resources, early access to features and tools, access to the Google Cloud platform, and promotional support. The program will focus on uses for Google Assistant in travel, hospitality, and games.
Make it easy to get in. It's a good idea. In 2016, Nokia acquired Withings, transformed the company into Nokia Digital Health. Now Nokia has announced it is negotiating to sell its digital health division, made up mostly of the former Withings company, to Withings founder Eric Carrell, I think is how you say it, or Carrell. Nokia Digital Health made up 52 million euros of Nokia's 23.2 billion last year, and they're dumping it.
We hardly knew ye, Withings. Yeah. Maybe it'll get to be called Withings again.
I shouldn't say they're dumping it. They're selling it.
Yeah. Data analytics firm SCL Group and its affiliate Cambridge Analytica has shut down. SCL Group, of course, as most of you know, received data from Professor Alexander Kogan's personality survey in violation of Facebook's terms of service. It told Facebook it deleted the data, but it was revealed earlier this year that it had not done so. Business Insider reports that SCL Group Chairman Julian Wheatland and Chief Data Officer Alexander Taylor set up a different company called Emmer Data last August, which lists former Cambridge Analytica CEO Alexander Nix as a director. Nix, of course, recently stepped down or was fired, depending on who you ask, from Cambridge Analytica. Emmer Data's mailing address is the same as SCL Group's, the owner of Cambridge Analytica. So they are definitely not gone, but they're also not forgotten. So I guess they're basically just still around under another name. And real quickly, the Spotify earnings just came in, and the operating loss has narrowed. This is Spotify's first earnings report since it IPO'd. And it looks like, okay, revenue for the latest quarter was 1.139 billion euros, up 26% from a year earlier, or 37% if you exclude currency effects, because remember, they operate in multiple places around the world, including the US. That was broadly in line with the 1.1 billion euros to 1.15 billion euros the company had forecast. Spotify said it had 170 million active monthly users at the end of March, up 30% from a year ago. That includes 75 million paying subscribers, which is up 45% on the year. So there you go. That's the Spotify earnings. Let's talk a little bit more about Facebook. F8 Day 2. Facebook announced it will open source more AI tools and said the next version of its open source deep learning framework, PyTorch 1.0, will be released in the coming months. Azure and AWS will both support PyTorch 1.0. Facebook also talked about how it uses billions of public photos on Instagram and their hashtags to train image recognition models. The pre-training involved developing systems that found relevant hashtags and then prioritized ones that were specific over more general ones like lit. It's not very useful for the machine learning. Facebook claims that its model can now distinguish dog breeds, plants, food, stuff like that. How do you feel about that?
I wonder if we're helping or hurting them, people like me. And there are a ton of artists on Instagram are posting just artwork, right? Very stylized stuff. Some of it's very abstract. Some of it may be realistic. But I have to think that stuff, they have to make their AI smart enough to go, all right, that's not a real face. That's a face of a thing that's not a real person. So ignore that. Like, I wonder if it makes their job easier or better or more robust, or if it's actually making them work harder for them as they comb that data from Instagram.
Well, I think that's what's significant about this story is that they created a way to sift through all of that. So it didn't matter. They're like, people do what people do, and we'll figure out how to get the AI to make sense out of it. And that's kind of an achievement in and of itself.
I agree. Dog breeds, crazy. LG announced its G7 Think. That's with a Q at the end.
Thank you. Like, thank you.
Thin Q. That's a Star Trek reference. Anyway, it's a brand new phone in New York City with a dedicated button for Google Assistant and a notch that you can turn it off with if you prefer full bezel, which is kind of the way a lot of people are going. The cameras use AI to identify objects and optimize contrast, saturation, and color. Always something about cameras with these new phones. The headphone jack can supply virtual 7.1 surround sound, and the internal speaker is 39% louder. LG did not announce a price or availability.
What do you think about that notch solution where they're like, it's got a notch, but if that bothers you, you can just turn off the screen around the notch so it just looks like a normal bezel?
I mean, it feels half-steppy. Like, we're all heading toward this bezel-less future and buttonless future, even Star Wars.
And notch full future, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. But even like Apple is so in on Face ID, and they're clearly going to a place where not even a single button will do anymore. I feel like we're kind of back, this particular phone anyway. It feels like back in the day when Blackberries were still coming out and people were saying, oh, good, because I want a physical keyboard. I need that tactile keyboard. And I don't hear anyone making that argument anymore. It just poofed away and went away. This feels like another one of those to me. So great for that interim group of folks who want to buy a phone that's got the option. But I hate to tell you all, you're looking at a future where there's bezel-less everything, and that's just how it's going to be.
So, and it's not about bezel-less, right? It's about the notch. People don't mind bezel-less; they mind the notch. And what LG is saying is like, if you mind the notch, you can have a bezel instead. It's up to you. You get choice. And I admire the principle behind that. And it might come in useful at times if a particular app isn't playing nice with the notch. And I guess if you turn off the bezel, it just shortens the screen size for the app, and then everything would look fine.
Yeah, I agree. Also, I know it's a small thing. It's a tiny little feature, but they mentioned the internal speaker being 39% louder. One of my biggest complaints about phones and handsets for the last, 5 years is they do tend to be a little quiet. So if you're trying to show something off in a crowded place, or you're trying to sort of get attention or use it as a device to teach or show or whatever, you kind of have a maximum range, and you have to have some sort of other external speaker solution to make it better. And while phones have increasingly gotten louder that way, a big increase in sound is good for me. I realize a lot of people are right now saying, well, Scott, that means really annoying text notifications and really annoying ringtones, and louder is not necessarily better for our sort of social contract we hope to maintain as people. But I, for one, think it would be useful to have a little more volume with my device. So small, but interesting.
And what LG's touting is that they're using like the internal space as sort of an amplification chamber. And some of the reviews I've said say, yeah, it's definitely louder, but louder doesn't always mean better. So we're not sure if this is a good thing or a bad thing. But I guess if it doesn't sound good, if it's all distorted loud, you could turn it down. But then that sort of defeats the purpose of having the ability to go louder, doesn't it?
Yep, good point.
Hey, you know what? The guys that started Sphero said, we were able to create a mini BB-8. What do we do now? Well, they went off and they created Misty Robotics. Misty Robotics has opened pre-orders for Misty 2, a personal robot development platform. Misty uses a visual block-based programming environment for easy creation of new skills. It can also use JavaScript and integrate Amazon Voice Services, Cortana, Google Assistant, other cloud APIs. A discounted version costs you $1,600, and it's available until the end of May for shipping in December. They're calling it crowdfunding, which kind of bugs me. I'm like, it's not crowdfunding if you're just selling it yourself. You're putting a limit on your pre-orders is what you're doing, but whatever. I like these guys, and I like this product because what they're trying to do is say, hey, let's create a robotics platform. Let's create the app store for robots, and Misty will be the prototype for that platform.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's great. However, what I hope it spawns, and I'm sure already exists in various ways. I've seen people do some stuff with Arduinos and Raspberry Pis that are pretty incredible in terms of robotics. I hope it continues to spur on the open source side of this, so that there are really cool creative ideas coming from that side. We can have the Labos and the Spheros of the world. I think that's great. There's a great mainstream opportunity there. I think this is really cool. But again, more development in the area of robotics, the better.
Clear point. It's a platform. It's not an open source platform.
Right. Correct. And also,
so it's like an app store, right? Apple's app store is open, but not open source.
Right.
There may be some open source elements of this, but
I'm going to go crowdfund a taco at Taco Bell later, by the way.
I will back that as long as I get some cheese. MoviePass resumed its $10 a month unlimited movie theater ticket service. CEO Mitch Lowe at CinemaCon was saying, I don't know when we're going to bring that back. Turns out today. That's when. Lowe says the company is, quote, absolutely committed to keeping it around. You still can only see one movie a day for $10 a month. And the restriction that they put in last week on seeing certain movies only once, which seems to apply to all the movies right now, but you can't keep going back and seeing Infinity War over and over again on MoviePass. You can only buy the ticket once. That's going to stay in place. But they did tease that they're going to introduce new plans by the end of the month that would include 3D and IMAX screenings, which are not available right now.
Oh, well, they won't help me because I hate both 3D. I don't hate IMAX. I don't like 3D.
I mean, even Limax is sometimes okay. That's what I call it when it's the IMAX proportions, but it's not really the full IMAX experience.
Oh, Limax, like it's lying to you.
Yeah.
You know what? Other people have said that to me, and it didn't even hit me what they were saying until you just did it. I thought maybe it was an alternative kind of WiMAX.
Oh, like LiDAR. LiDAR is also radar that lies to you. No,
yeah,
that part isn't true.
I keep talking about jumping in on the MoviePass thing. I don't know. Maybe now's the time. I feel like the minute I start talking about more than just me, like if I want one for Kim or for the kids or something, I'm like, man, that's $50 a month. But every time I go see a movie, like I saw Avengers yesterday, I'm going to go see Solo later in the month for sure. Probably something else in between. I'm going to spend 3 times this if I'm not careful. So I don't know. I think I'm going to finally just bite the cheese and do it, which is not a phrase, by the way. Biting the cheese.
Well, it is now. And the t-shirts will be available in the Daily Tech News Show store.
Also, Showbot probably already has it on there. Amazon warned Open Whisper Systems that the anti-censorship system used for messaging service Signal violates Amazon Web Services terms of service by hiding the true origin of traffic using domain fronting. Love that fronting, yo. Signal faces immediate suspension. Signal uses Amazon's, I don't know how to say that, Souk?
Souk. Yeah, I think you nailed it in one.
SOUQ.com to obfuscate traffic from outside observers, but it does not hide the origin to users, and it uses its own web security certificate.
Yeah, so if you want a good explanation of domain fronting, I would hit up Bart Buchatz or Steve Gibson or Darren Kitchen for resources on that. But the short version is you wrap your legitimate request inside a request that looks for like it's a different domain name, so that if you're the user, oh, I'm requesting youtube.com, right? But if you're the country of Turkey, which has just banned youtube.com for whatever reason, it looks like you're requesting souk.com. And so you don't block that request. The problem is that works for Signal. It also works for malicious actors. And Amazon and Google both now have tried to close the loophole on domain fronting, which was never an intentional feature of their services. It was because they had separated the way they did certain requests that led to you being able to do this. And what they're saying is to stop bad actors, we're going to close that loophole, which is actually what companies should be doing these days. They should be going after these kinds of loopholes and saying, you know what, that could be exploited. Let's shut it down. But it has the very unfortunate effect of taking away an anti-censorship tool, which has been very useful for dissidents and people who just want to protect their communications.
Well, it's just part of this pattern, new exploits mean sometimes scrapping everything and starting over with better ideas. So that's probably what's going to happen here. Certainly if Amazon gets their way.
Well, and the problem is Moxie Marlinspike, who's doing the Lord's work at Signal, trying to make this work for good, doesn't have a viable alternative to this, and has said, this essentially makes Signal unviable in certain countries like Egypt, where the only way it was working was using domain fronting. And when Google shut it down, they went to Amazon. And now that Amazon's shutting down, it doesn't seem like there is an alternative yet. But something to keep an eye on, like you say. The internet always routes around. Maybe there is another way to provide that kind of anti-censorship.
Yep.
Hey, folks, if you want to get all the tech headlines each day in about 5 minutes or so, subscribe to Daily Tech Headlines. You can get it on the Amazon Echo. You can also get it on the Google Home and the Anchor app. And, of course, as a podcast at dailytechheadlines.com. I'm going to tell you a story, and then I'm going to tell you some reality. Scott, are you ready?
I am. I like a good story, and I like my reality occasionally.
Back in February, CNN reported Apple said its expected sales for the upcoming quarter, the quarter that just ended, to be between 60 billion and 62 billion. So keep that in mind. In February, after their quarterly earnings, Apple said next quarter in May, we think it'll be between 60 and 62 billion. All right. They had just come off a quarter where Apple phone sales had been down 1% year over year, and that was a holiday quarter. Now, people didn't slam Apple for that. They said, down 1%, that's essentially flat. That's fine. They also panicked, saying 60 to 62 billion. That doesn't sound like much. Is Apple in trouble? And that started essentially a meme of Apple's in trouble for the next 3 months.
Yeah.
TSMC, which makes chips that go into Apple phones, as well as many other products, reported low sales. Now, if you read the headlines, Scott, what would you think those low sales were caused by?
Well, if I read them, I would think that meant people were buying less phones or less.
What kind of phones particularly would the headlines have told you they were buying less of?
Gosh, it seems like they might zero in on a kind of a baity thing, like maybe Apple, maybe Samsung here and there, but mostly Apple.
No, pretty much just the iPhone, right? What they didn't tell you in the headlines, and sometimes in entire stories, was that the decline in cryptocurrency, which has helped the prices of video cards come down finally, also affected TSMC's sales. Now, Samsung's OLED panels. Samsung had a glorious earnings report, but one, so not even negative, but one disappointing factor was OLED panel sales were slowing. Who's a big consumer of Samsung's OLED panels, according to the headlines, the buzzy headlines, Scott?
Well, outside of themselves, certainly, I would think the Apple iPhone.
You can't help yourself. You can't help yourself being reasonable here. I know. It's like you're not even supposed to say outside themselves. The headlines were OLED panels down at Samsung, must be slowing iPhone sales. Now, through all of this,
specifically the 10, right? Like that's the 10.
Oh yeah, no, specifically the 10. So through all of this, on DTNS, we've said, well, hold on, the entire smartphone market is slowing. China sales are saturated. I'm not going to guess we're going to have a gangbusters quarter for Apple, but it's probably not going to be disastrous. They're forecasting 60 to 62 billion. That's down, but not awful. Well, this week, before the Apple earnings, Daily Mail reported Merrill, Lynch, and JP Morgan have warned their clients that Apple's iPhone sales may come in below expectations. We're talking Merrill, Lynch, and JP Morgan here. Mirabud securities analyst Neil Campling told investors iPhone 10 would be discontinued this year due to poor demand, which frankly it might be because they just replace it with other models. But the idea was like the sales are going to be so bad, they're just going to get rid of it. We mentioned the initial earnings report yesterday. Here's the full report. 52.2 million iPhones sold in the past quarter, up 3% year over year. Remember, in the holiday quarter, they were down 1%, and everyone said, well, I guess that's not great, but it's okay. Yeah. This time, when everyone was forecasting gloom and doom, they were up 3%. Average selling price rose 10% to $728. That implies that the expensive iPhone 10 brought up the average over last year. iPad sales actually rose 2%. Mac sales fell 3%. That's been a trend. Services revenue rose 31%. We're seeing Apple become a service company here. App Store, Apple Music, iCloud, and Apple Pay all generated record revenue, according to Apple. Revenue overall hit that target, $61.1 billion, up over $52.9 billion last year. Earnings per share rose from $2.10 last year to $2.73 this year. In other words, the news was good. Here's the thing. Even in slowing China, we've talked a lot on the show about how the smartphone market is slowing down in China. It's saturating. Apple sales in China rose 21%. Apple's best growth rate in that market yet, despite falling in market share, they still grew. CEO Tim Cook said, it's one of those things like when a team wins the Super Bowl. Maybe you want them to win by a few more points, but it's a Super Bowl winner, and that's how we feel about it.
All right. There's a couple of takeaways from this for me. I feel like one of them should be, why is it that your show and content like this is the only place I'm getting this sort of non-freak out approach to quarterly sales from a big company like Apple? All of that other stuff, and I've seen it. I saw it pop up in news feeds all year. Well, so far this year, I saw all this gloom and doom talk. I saw stuff in I use the iPad Pro and use the news app from Apple, and I'm seeing things pop up saying, is the iPhone 10 in huge trouble? Is quicksand surrounding the... Like, it was the most hyperbolic, ridiculous 6 or so months I've ever experienced. And because there's so few sources that you can go to and go, all right, what's really going on here? I mean, that's a bummer, dude. It's a bummer. So,
well, there's lots of theories on why this happens, because usually when stuff like this happens, I say, well, you're not picking your sources closely enough. You need to limit where you read your news and question if you're reading mobile-bloglines.com, is that a reliable source? Like, go with the places you know are good. Bloomberg, The Verge, TechCrunch, Ars Technica, The Wired, CNET, etc. In this case, though, you were still getting these kinds of statements from analysts. Mm-hmm. So, I'm not going to throw Bloomberg and The Verge and the rest under the bus. They were often very, very even-handedly just reporting like, well, analysts are saying they're concerned, and here's why. Several of these outlets did mention, well, Samsung also, is a big consumer of its own panels, and cryptocurrency is also one of TSMC's, and the better outlets did mention that, but you still had the blaring headline because the analysts were saying this. And I guess the reason for that is everyone's concerned that Apple's going to blow it because they haven't had a new iPhone, right? And I almost wanted to go find an old story about the iPod market maturing and just rewrite it with iPhone and see if it still worked for today.
Yeah, you might be able to pass it off as like an actual current thing. Change the dates, change the names, and pretty much you've done it. Also, I saw a post yesterday somewhere that the headline was, Google and Android have a serious problem with their messaging service, and it sucks and it's unusable, or something to that effect. No, it isn't. It's Of course it's usable. Millions of people, possibly billions, are using it.
Yeah.
So I realize this is kind of like, well, let's take a stab at the big guys who are dominating because, ooh, looks like a little crack in the cement. Maybe this is our time to pounce. And I understand that mentality. I understand how we do this as humans. But man, I wish the tech press would just, I don't know, on the whole, just smarten up, tighten up. And like you said, there are sources that are going to give it to you straight, and you should figure out what those are and cultivate those. But I think this sort of thing's important, and I'm glad that we did it today because this is where I get my clarifications every week. I hope people listening right now are like, yeah, that hyperbolic news stuff that we've been hearing so much about. It's not just politics, not just in other parts of life. It's part of the tech news cycle, maybe more than it's ever been.
And yeah, looking at Apple, you could say, okay, iPhone sales are slowing. Right? They're not slowing as much as people were freaking out about, but they are slowing, and services seem to be gaining. So that's the thing to look at. What new products is Apple going to come out with that can start to pick up the slack for the slowing iPhone market? Because it's not going to die tomorrow. They're still selling iPads, for goodness sakes. They're still selling Macs, for goodness sake. Like, phones are going to sell well for Apple for a while. But what's going to start picking up the slack? And is that services number going to keep going up? Are Apple services going to continue to be robust and a way that Apple can continue to make money even off their older equipment as people stop replacing phones regularly? Like, to me, that's the story. That's the concern. That's the thing you look at Apple for. And the reason you care as a regular consumer is that you want to know what the health of a company is when you buy in their ecosystem, and you want to know what choices you're going to have, and whether it's time to buy the iPhone 10 or should wait till October, all of that sort of thing. So
maybe part of them picking up the slack will be picking up Slack.
That's a good clickbait headline right there.
Yeah, that's not bad, right? That's pretty good.
Hey, thanks everybody who participates in our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com and in our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/dailytechnewsshow. Derek called in after our Friday roundtable when we had all Canadian guests, and we had asked them for some of their favorite Canadian tech companies. Derek's got a whole lot more to tell you about.
Hey, DTNS crew. It's Derek calling in from sunny, warm Kamoka, Ontario, Canada. I wanted to follow up on Friday's discussion about Canadian tech companies. There are a lot of them. A lot of them you may or may not know, depending on your industry or your interests or the blogs you read and that sort of thing. But I wanted to chime in with a few, about 10 or so, that you may or may not have heard of. They include D-Wave, which is a quantum computing company, Lightspeed, they do point of sale systems, Sensible, Dipley, Unbounce marketing company or marketing tech company, Big Viking Games and Digital Extremes. They're both gaming game developers. 500 Pixels, Text Now, Breather, which lets you rent quiet spaces in Montreal, Toronto, New York, a bunch of other places. Hopper, that's a travel site. Ritual, which is a loyalty program on a loyalty app on your phone. Vidyard, lets you make marketing videos. Comdev, they're a big space and satellite hardware supplier. 900 plus satellites that their hardware is on. And speaking of space, Canadarm2 is very much up and running. It's actually attached to the International Space Station right now, and it helped assemble the ISS while it was in orbit, or while we were sending things up there to put the ISS together. So lots of Canadian tech contributions all over the place, in addition to the ones mentioned on Friday. And I think we have a lot to be proud of. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Derek. Some really interesting stuff. Even not just the fact that they're Canadian, but like some interesting startup ideas in there, like the renting quiet spaces.
Did you guys eat, did you guys do poutine while you did your roundtable? Because you had all those Canadians?
I should have. I really should have, because I love poutine. And there's a really good poutine place. Not too far.
That's all right. Next time.
Yeah. All right, let's check the mailbag before we get out of here. We miss you, Sarah. Sarah's usually good to do this. I'll try to make my way through. Lillian wrote in and said, Roger mentioned the Scholastic box in yesterday's episode. My kids, ages 2 and 4, still get Scholastic flyers in their daycare. The school also hosts the Scholastic Book Fair twice a year. So the Scholastic stuff of our childhood is still a thing, at least in New Jersey.
Yeah. Well, my kids were a little bit younger. We still did the Scholastic thing. You saw it all the time. In fact, I want to say the first Harry Potter book I ever got had the Scholastic publishing thing on it, I think.
Oh, yeah. The first round of Harry Potter was a Scholastic imprint. You're right.
That's where they were pushing it. So yeah, alive and well. Turns out, I don't know. I can't say this that about Highlights magazine, which was my favorite thing in the world, but unconnected, sadly. So no highlights.
Goofus and Gallant.
I just like finding the matching stuff on the page. There was a picture
The
of
hidden pictures. Yeah.
the other monkey. You know, it was great.
Right. Where is the other monkey? Well, if you want to find out where the other monkey is, you gotta follow Scott Johnson. What's going on, Scott?
Well, there's all sorts of stuff going on. First of all, huge thanks to everybody in the DTNS crowd who all came out for the TMS meetup we did in Vegas. Tom and I were there, of course, with Brian Ibbett, Nicole, and Jury, and a bunch of other folks, and it was fantastic. So huge thanks to you guys. But it's back to the grindstone. The grindstone for me right now is fulfilling a big Kickstarter that's still up and still doing well. We've got about half the time left. If you're interested in checking it out and you like playing cards, those two things interest you, head on over to frogpants.com/cards. Clicking anywhere on that page will take you to the Kickstarter, and you can see what we've unlocked, what's available, and what you might expect. Again, that's frogpants.com/cards. And for everything else, follow me on Twitter at Scott Johnson.
Folks, thank you for supporting us in all the myriad ways that there are. We have the Daily Tech News Show store, as I mentioned earlier, and we have shirts and mugs and cool things in there. And patreon.com/DTNS is the place to become a member and hang out with other folks in our Slack and our Discord, even just on Patreon talking to each other. We always want to have at least one more patron than the previous month. Last month, we got 20 more patrons than the previous month. And so I have reached out to my friend Eric. Some of you may know him as Fat Emo Kid, who used to keep tarantulas and knows where to find them. And he's got a line on a guy with a tarantula. So we will, sometime before May 10th, take a video of a tarantula crawling on my arm for 20 seconds in honor of the 20 new patrons that we got last month.
You are brave, dude. I would not. This would be really hard.
We'll see how brave I am when it comes time to do that. In the meantime, we actually have 3 more patrons than last month this month already. So keep that momentum going as well. And thank you to everyone who supports the show at patreon.com/DTNS. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 20:30 UTC. You can find out more about that at dailytechnewsshow.com/live. We'll be back tomorrow with Justin Robert Young. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
BioCow says, no long sleeve shirt allowed. Must be skin. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Oh, man.
That's fine.
Some hardcore rule making there.
No kidding, man.
No, I couldn't do it. I mean, I probably could do it.
It's just like an 8-legged hairy dog.
Exactly. It's just a little puppy crawling up my arm with fur.
The thing is, because it's bigger and weighs more, it doesn't feel like a little small thing crawling on you. It just feels like, you ever have like a gecko or lizard on you or something like that? It feels like that.
Not often.
Listen, Roger, this is a very insane thing that we're doing because of 20 more people, right?
Yes.
It's not easy. That's why we're doing it.
Well, I want to take the various pictures of Tom's face with the various contortions as it starts and then makes its way up.
It's actually the visual version of clickbait, isn't it?
And then I'll tell Tom, don't open your mouth. It likes to see giant holes.
They lay eggs in your mouth.
Yeah, you don't want that.
The bot fly is the worst. They lay their eggs in your nose.
Ew.
Oh, by the way, so Australians, the meetups are all set for when I'm in Australia. And everyone else, I will be gone May 11th through the 26th. Sarah, Roger, Scott, Justin, everybody will be filling in, Patrick. But I will be doing a roundtable episode that won't be on Friday. This month's roundtable will be recorded on Monday, May 21st for the hemisphere I'm in right now. So the Monday, May 21st episode will be put out at a different time. It may not be streamed live, and it will be the Australian Roundtable with myself, Raj Diout, and Peter Wells. Now, that will be the only episode I'm doing while I'm gone, so be prepared for that. and be prepared for the roundtable to be off schedule a little bit. Also, that roundtable will actually be recorded on May 22nd in Australia because they live in the future. And after we record it, we're doing a meetup in Melbourne at Bartronica at 6 p.m. Tuesday, May 22nd. We will be posting more details. I posted details about this on Twitter. I'll be posting them again in a couple of days on the Patreon. We're also doing a meetup in Sydney on May 15th at 6 p.m. at Hart's Pub, which is the corner of Essex and Gloucester Streets in the Rocks district. Big thanks to D. Colville for help scouting that out. So again, we'll put this information out there in the monthly post on Patreon. I'll eventually put it up on dailytechnewsshow.com again. But there you go. There's the update on the Australian shindigs.
That's awesome. I can't wait for that. The roundtable. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that too. That's going to be a fun day because I'll just get to hang out with Pete and Raj, chew the fat, and then we head off to the pub immediately after. That's going to be great.
Fat chewing. All right. Speaking of fat chewing, headlines. Title: Breaking news. Alarming headlines drive more traffic. There's also don't believe the headline hype. And better bezels are a notch away. Those are my picks.
What do you like, Scott?
No.
There's also did Tim Cook the books, but I mean that's insinuating.
It's a good pun.
It is, but it's
Not
insinuating
really a
something.
point we made. But.
Yeah. Actually, I do like that one. Give me that top one again.
The top one of my pick, or on the list right now, is louder doesn't mean better. But my pick was breaking news. Alarming headlines drive more traffic, or don't believe the headline hype.
I kind of like the second one.
Don't believe the headline hype.
Yeah, it's easier.
Which one do you like, Roger?
Breaking news. Alarming headlines drive more traffic.
What do you think, Tom?
Well, if I have to choose between those two, I will probably I like them both, so I'd probably just choose the shorter because the shorter is always better for ability and such. I'm not sure which one's shorter just from the sound of them.
Don't believe the headline hype.
The shorter one.
Yeah, that's why I like it actually, is because it's shorter. But
all right, let's do that.
But I
Don't
defer to your
believe the headline hype.
the wisdom of Tom's crowd.
Please select the template you would like to load. It says WordPress. Okay. Boom. That's done.
Jeez, you're so freaking efficient.
I mean, the headline is chosen. I'm exporting the show. It's not published yet.
I mean, you are so inefficient.
You're the opposite of a bento box. You're a plate lunch. Macaroni's just mixing in with the rice.
Oh, but that's so good.
I know. I love doing it. That's so good. Lau Lau and Kahlua pork mixed in with your mac salad and your rice.
Man, hungry already. You know, I mean, I had poi there too, and of course, there's different types of poi depending on how long it's fermented. But
I find it's hard to find poi. It's almost a touristy thing.
It is, because it's really, you don't eat it every day, at least.
Yeah,
the way
it's a special occasion thing.
But in the supermarket, you get it. They come in bags.
Yeah, you can buy it. But in restaurants, I noticed like it's the more touristy restaurants that like Aloha Mixed Plate in Lahaina on Maui has it, but they also have a big luau that they cater to visitors. Whereas like Mama's Kitchen or Duck Kitchen, I think maybe what it might be called.
Where's the pig? Is the common cry.
Where's the pig?
I paid for the luau. Where's the pig?
Side Street Inn in Honolulu, if I remember right, had a great kimchi selection.
Oh, I'm so into it.
You know, the thing
you've got.
I'm a little ashamed to admit this, but the one thing I miss from Hawaii food-wise is the Taro Pies over at McDonald's.
Yeah, I could see that.
They're really good. You don't think so? It's like, dude, it's purple inside, but man,
that's what it's like. You're eating Grimace.
Hold on, Taro Pies. I don't know.
So instead of apple pie, well, I think they have apple pies, but they also have taro pies. So it's the same shape as their apple pies, but it's taro.
Oh, interesting. I don't know why that's not familiar.
Better than poi pie.
Taro's the root, right?
Yeah, it's the root they
And,
make poi out of.
And it's interesting because it's not as sweet, which is why I think I like it so much compared to the apple pie. But McDonald's around the world, they have different pies and different specialty sandwiches. Although when I was in Sydney, I just got a quarter pounder.
Does Kim like kimchi as much as you do?
Not as much as I do. She likes it okay, but she's not like.
What's her thing?
What's her deal?
I mean, any kind of like Southern food, like etouffee or
etouffee is good.
Gumbos and
Gumbos I like. I like any Cajun Creole because it has the mixture of the rice, the vegetables, and the meat. So it's not just a giant slab of meat.
Yeah, she's a fan of that stuff, and I like that stuff too. But if she's got a preference, that's the kind of thing she gets. She also likes fish and seafood and that kind of thing. Not really a seafood guy.
Eileen likes pasta. She's a big spaghetti fan.
I love.
Every time I eat pasta, I feel like I gain 80 pounds.
Yeah, that's a problem. You swell.
Yeah. Not in a good swell.
Jambalaya. I wouldn't mind gumbo or jambalaya right now.
Oh my gosh, dude. My wife will make a batch of jambalaya and it'll last us like 2 weeks, and it's just as good.
Does she like all those Louisiana hot sauces and stuff too?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. One of our favorite gifts around here ever getting was that monthly thing you sent me.
Oh, yeah.
The monthly hot sauce?
Yeah. Every month you get these rad hot sauces, and we still, keep them around upstairs and use them for everything.
Nice.
Big hot sauce house around here.
Mm-hmm.
The hot sauce house.
That's your reality show.
Yep.
Welcome to Hot Sauce House.
I made the mistake
of hot sauce.
I went to this local Mexican restaurant and I got like, oh, give me the hot stuff. And I'm so used to hot sauces, like American hot sauce, not being that hot for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I'll just get the hot because it won't be hot. Like, holy crap. It was
You're like, oh, wait, you weren't playing around.
Yeah, you dropped the pepper seeds in it. Like the hottest part of the pepper.
That's good to know, though.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I like my kimchi medium to mild. I'm not huge on it being super hot, though.
Mm-hmm.
Not really my bag.
You just pour hot sauce on it if you need to make it hotter.
Yeah. I mean, you can always add more, right?
I think I wonder if the original use of the spicy was just to kill whatever was might make you sick, because that's what wasabi was used for initially. Was kind of an anesthetic.
How does spicy stuff kill things? It's not like actual heat where it's
no. But I mean, like the acidity or whatever in the seeds would make it undesirable.
I know that the ginger was meant to settle your stomach,
but then Marianne came along and it was just a toss up.
Ginger always unsettled my stomach.
Professor,
old man,
Professor or Marianne type. Ginger wasn't really my.
Man, can I put out a petition to get Gilligan's Island streaming someplace?
Oh, it's not. You can't watch it anywhere.
No, Hulu's got clips. That's it. There's no stream. I know you can go buy DVDs and all that, but I don't want to do that.
No, I mean that's a weird thing that's going on. Is where they make the decision not to stream something and decide to try to push you to buy it instead.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Because 10-Speed and Brown Shoe, you still can't stream it. You can't even buy the pilot because it's owned by a different production company. It's so weird.
Yeah.
And of course, everyone wants 10-Speed and Brown Shoe.
I want Northern Exposure, and all I can do is buy a DVD version that has all the music changed. Because
I know this is why the VHS copies are so expensive. Is because the VHS copies have the original music in it before all the licensing issues came up and they couldn't put the same music.
Which really is a bummer. It's a huge bummer. I don't like it.
I think a lot of those are because the target market is assumed to be older, so they don't want to undermine the unit sales. They want, like, well, this is a segment of the market that still buys DVDs. So why would we put it on streaming when the bulk of our audience still uses DVD players? Force them into buying the DVDs while we still can.
It's just, for me, it's the music issue. The first season actually has.
Well, I was thinking of Gilligan's Island and Northern Exposure, and all of them.
Man, that series was good until the last season when it just jumped the shark.
Which one?
That was Happy Days that jumped the shark.
Northern Exposure.
Oh, big time.
Like, I can see New York from this woodlands in Alaska. Let me walk towards it. Oh, bye.
But a new doctor is terrible.
It's like, I get it now. He's a shaman or something, or weird, like wise man of the woods.
It got real dumb.
But
I'm
man,
so
there's just some brilliant writing in there.
Yeah.
Oh,
The rest
loved
of
it.
that show, though, so good.
So good. The cow tossing episode.
Yeah.
Chris was going to toss a cow as an art project.
Yeah, that was a good one. I love that one.
Oh, do you remember the episode where Maggie's boyfriends all come back to haunt her because she? Oh, it was great.
Yeah, no, it was good.
Old man humor. Old man humor. Actually, it's not old man. If you watch it, it's great. It's classic.
I'm in agreement.
I have to call my dad in a few. So we're going to wrap it up here. We're going to see you all tomorrow with Justin Robert Young. Any last words?
Goodbye, video stream.
Wait, I want a final word. Philanthropy. There. That's my final word.
Bye.